let's start by going through the Avatar stuff. So obviously we know that Season 2 and Season 3 are in production. As we expected, Toph has been cast. Now, there's a bunch of controversy around, like, whether or not they should have cast a blind actress. I've talked about that ad nauseum. I think it's like, whatever Netflix can actually serve properly, I think is the right call. There's also this movie, if you want to see, apparently, like, her dry sarcasm and childlike joy. I looked at the trailer. She doesn't really get that many lines, so it's hard to really say. But I guess I'll look this up at some point. Because I think Toph is like a... You need someone who can pull off that my level of sarcasm, right? Where people say that they don't know I'm joking, basically. You need to be able to say things in the driest manner possible while still having, like, a childlike curiosity, and that's going to be hard. But they dropped this. Luckily, there doesn't seem to be another delay. Because I thought that the Season 2 production thing will be delayed again. Because of some things that have been floating around behind the scenes. I know a few things here and there. It did seem like there might be another delay. I don't think there is. So, let's take a look at this. Season 2 is officially in production. And don't forget, Avatar, not One Piece. Avatar is shooting Season 2 and Season 3 back to back. Not One Piece. That is a rumor that has never been confirmed. It happened during a Patty interview, and you shouldn't look at that as fact at all. You see, it's Earth. If you couldn't tell, we're watching this because it's Earth. That's gonna be it, right? And that's it. Okay. So that is just Toph. Is just Toph. I don't... this is probably not even the finished costume. Maybe it is, maybe it's not, I don't know. If it is the finished costume, I really like this bit of cloth right here, because it seems like they're continuing on the, like, the traditional materials thing, right? It's not like a perfectly white bit of cloth. It's actually like you can see wear and tear on it, which I'm 100% all about. I think the costume department for Season 1 was so good. It was great. She played an angry, troubled kid with a hidden golden heart on that show, so I guess it's pretty close to Toph. Yeah, I'll definitely take a look at this, because I've got no clue what this is, but she's in it, and I think she's like one of the main roles. I guess we'll see. But there's also this blog post. I wanted to go through this blog post because I saw Avatarist already talking about it. So let's look through this. Avatar: The Last Airbender Season 2 officially kicks off production. Aang's journey continues. The war against the Fire Nation is far from over. Back in March, Netflix announced that Avatar, we all know this. Toph has been cast. Yes. We're looking forward to working with all of our actors again and digging into deeper, more complicated relationships that develop as their journey continues in Season 2. Executive producers Christian Boylan and Rabar Raisani, I think, tell Tadam. Remember that there was a bunch of, there was like a shakeup with the executive producers and showrunners behind the scenes? I don't remember the exact details, but there has been a shakeup for Season 2, so there might also be like a slightly different creative approach. It's normal for these kinds of things. It's not really like a huge deal. It's not, there's like no doomsaying going on here. It's just something that happened. We're going to show the real-world versions of iconic scenes from the original and explore some of the stories that the animation didn't. Mainly, we're looking forward to seeing our gang all together. Now, this is the thing that I saw Avatars talking about, and this is the thing that makes me worried. Because, in the same way that he put it, the runtime and episode count better be a lot more than we got in Season 1. And, this is what I've been championing ever since we first saw it. I responded to it here, too. Like, if their takeaway from Season 1 was that the changes they made is basically, like, too close to the original, and people didn't like the changes they made because they were trying to be the original, so now they're going to diverge even further, I think it's going to fail. And I think it's going to fail pretty spectacularly. Because if they're going to start cutting stuff from the canon material that people wanted to see, and start exploring some of the stories we didn't get to see in the animation, people will be mad. This is literally going to be like the Cowboy Bebop situation. Well, no, not Cowboy Bebop. What series has done this? I guess The Walking Dead would once again be like the closest example. Like, we're not going to be doing the things that the source material did, but we're going to be exploring stories that the source material didn't. And like, why adapt the source material then? Like, at that point, it's a different adaptation, you know? I am concerned about this. I am very, very concerned about this. Because Book 2, we've talked about this before. Book 2, there's not a lot of stuff that can be cut. There's not. Like, in Book 1, we called most of the things that would be cut, right? Like the Great Divide, that was cut. The Pirates, those were cut. A lot of the stuff that we sort of expected to be cut, they were 100% cut, right? And that was not a surprise. With Book 2, though, like, it starts with the Avatar State, which is obviously massively important, and it establishes an overarching story, right, for the whole book, right? Because it starts with the Avatar State, ends with the Avatar State. So that must be there. Then we move into the swamp, which obviously also must be there. Okay, Avatar Day, maybe you can cut that. But a certain YouTuber by the name of, you might know him. You might know him. A certain YouTuber by the name of Koroto's Mystery Shack made a video 9 days ago on the Avatar Day, and I stand by this 1,000,000%. I think Avatar Day is something that could be massively expanded on and improved in the live-action version. Now that they're saying they're going to be exploring things that were never explored in the original, almost makes me think like, we're not going to have time for that, right? Because it's literally the Avatar State. Then you have the swamp stuff. You have Toph. You have Avatar Days like in the middle of that. You literally can't skip most of it, right? Like, you can't skip the chase, because that's what establishes Azula going after Aang. You can't skip any of the Zuko B-plot, because Zuko's B-plot is literally what defined most of Book 1. You can't skip stuff in Book 2. You just can't. So, what? There's not a lot of room there. This is making me real spooked. Let's forget about it and move on to One Piece. How about we don't forget about it? I am not going to write any blank checks. Who knows? Book 2 of, not Book 2, but Season 2 of One Piece might come out and it could be bad. I don't write blank checks. Keep readings to find out everything we know. Okay. The EPs, rather, not the episodes, are keeping details about Season 2 close to the vest, but they did tease that we will see more of the Earth Kingdom. Good news about this. If you recall, they are moving away from the volume, right? So a bunch of the stuff in Ba Sing Se is going to be physical sets in the same way that we see physical sets with One Piece. I think this is a universal W. They use the volume way too much, and I think they also didn't use it very correctly. We talked about a lot with this with Book 1. A lot of the scenes that were shot in the volume, you could tell they were shot in the volume, which completely nullifies the point of the volume, right? Like, the super immersive experience that the volume provides just wasn't there, unfortunately. So, I think this is a big W. For the gang, fans can expect more brilliant paths from Sokka, of course, more masterful waterbending. Look. One of the most mismanaged things in all of Book 1 is Katara's waterbending. But okay. Appa and Momo to be as fluffy as ever... True and real, and Aang to learn a new bending form or two. I mean, they skipped a deserter, which is, again, like, another thing that is massively important, right? Like, are they going to move the deserter to Book 2? Because if they move the deserter to Book 2, then what the hell are you gonna explore stories that the animation didn't? If they don't get more episodes, it's gonna be a tough situation. It's gonna be a very tough situation. The series did skip a lot of journeys. They'll be in one area, and the next was like a whole new area, not even close. Yeah, and that's one thing that the live action series, I think, kind of failed on. They tried doing this in terms of opening a new episode with something that is like completely different, but I think one of the biggest problems the live action version had was writing a bridge, right? So it always struggled in connecting two unconnected events, whereas the animation, because it's just 20-minute blocks, they could do that infinitely more, right? So this is like one of those structural things that you must also remember when talking about live action shows, right? The runtime of this is identical to the original, but that doesn't actually matter, because the way a show is structured, it's not going to function in the same way as an animated show where it's just 20-minute blocks, because that is just not how TV is written. You're not going to write in a 40-minute episode 20 minutes of one story, 20 minutes of another story. Right? So I think even if they kept the runtime for this season exactly the same, like they didn't actually shoot more things, but they just gave them more episodes, the series would be better. If the episodes were like, instead of being an hour long, every episode was 35 minutes long, and they just had more episodes, the scripts would be better. Like, straight up. It's as simple as that. Because they wouldn't have to draw these like complicated sort of through lines that connect the events we see. And they could take... Bless you. Are you alright? Okay, Appa just started sneezing very quickly. What was I saying? You don't need to establish like these complicated through lines to make the show make sense. You can literally just move from one location to another, and it's gonna be no big deal because, like, you're watching the show, the episode ends, the next episode starts with something else. It just makes sense, right? Whereas you can't do that mid-episode. It's not really about like skipping the journeys. It's about making the skips make sense. You know, in general, these people are excited about building on the strong foundation of season 1. Okay. It's one way to put it. We're going to challenge our characters with more complex and nuanced obstacles as they navigate the more tactical world, they continue. Just as the animated series matured and progressed, the live action will also take these characters and worlds and grow them. Well, I mean, I sure hope so. I sure hope so. I don't think season 1 was a very strong foundation. I think it was a flimsy foundation that they should be very careful what they build on. Otherwise, like, it's all gonna collapse, is the way I would put it. Because I think, like, some of the fundamental pillar stones, they did mess up in book 1. I think they did a lot of great things in terms of fleshing out the bigger world, but I think they also messed up a bunch of very, very fundamental things. My understanding is Christine will be the sole showrunner now. Raisani will only serve as a producing director, not showrunner. Yeah, I haven't read that much into it, but I know there was a shakeup behind the scenes. Why do they always try new things? Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So frustrating. I a million percent agree with you. And I think, like, I've said this a million times, I do think a big part of this is ego. I think, for some reason, producers in the West cannot accept the fact that this is not their thing. I think they're taking the show and sort of molding it to what they envision it as. Chico wrote episode 6, Mask, which is my favorite. She's leaving. I'm not sure about that, yeah. I know episode 6 was probably my favorite one, too. And that's the one that Mike and Brian were involved with as well. Apparently. So this is just recap. This is book 2 and 3. I thought it was really clever of the writers to end season 1 in that way because you want to get a sense of that the universe of the show is expanding with every season. This guy is really, really good as Ozai, by the way, Daniel Day Kim. And they really did a good job of that cliffhanger and also creating a sense of urgency and time. I disagree with this. They didn't create a sense of urgency because there is no... Like, they never explicitly vocalized what any of it means. I think the animated series was infinitely better in creating a sense of urgency. Just putting it out there. Always leave the audience wanting more. I just had chill seeing Lizzie as Azula. You've got King Boomy in shackles, and it's just like, oh, there's so many cliffhangers. I was like, oh, I want to shoot season 2 and 3 right now. Thankfully, he's getting his wish. Oh, these are the auditions. And you see what I mean? Look at how young he looks. Because this started like 3 years ago. It must have been more than that. I refuse to believe that it was just 3 years ago. I mean, it says 3 years ago for all of them, so I guess it was 3 years ago. Why does this look like meme material? Look at him. Just... Yeah, I know these are fake scripts. That's why I'm looking at them. I want to see, like, because they were talking about an alarm clock, right? That's what I mean. This whole, like, my father's company, you ruined my father's company because of, like, an alarm clock? That's what I mean. I love these. The fake scripts they were given are always so unhinged. I love them. I heard Toph casting is a real blind girl. I don't think she is. I don't. At least, like, I'm 99% sure. This is Toph's actress. Mia. Che? I've got no idea how. Che? Maybe Che? Say? I don't know. This is the actress. And people were apparently mad that, like, that she's not blind, right? But this is once again where you enter the internet in 2024, where if they cast a blind actress, well, it would be like a token gesture that is actually transparent, and Netflix doesn't care. And if they didn't cast a blind actress, well, now they're disrespecting the source material. So it was kind of a lose-lose situation. My opinion on this was if they could cast a blind actress and make sure that they can, like, actually accommodate her with everything, sure, go ahead, why not? But I don't think they should cast someone who is blind just for the sake of casting someone who is blind, basically. It just opens up, like, so many doors of like problems in terms of setting up all the shoots, in terms of making it safe. Like, it's a hard thing to do, and I don't know if it's the right thing to do with something like Avatar, where, like, so many things could go wrong, right? Like, people get hurt with the smallest of stunts, and to make sure that they can pull off something like this, if they could, sure, but I don't know. Qatar is so bland in season 1, I think it's not the actress's fault, the writing and the directing is. Bingo. And this is what people completely always overlook. They keep saying that, like, the actors are the problem, but it's not. The problem with all of these different things is the script and is the director. 90% of the time, the problem is the director. Why do I say that? Because I swear this is not like a trauma of mine, but I watched The Walking Dead: The Ones Who Live, and if Denai Guerrera and Andrew Lincoln can look like clowns, Andrew Lincoln and Denai Guerrera, they looked like clowns in that show. It looked like it was the first day they were acting. Like, you know it's bad when even they can't save the show, right? It's the script. And what does a director do? The director is meant to direct the characters, right? It's the same thing I always say about kid actors. Yes, they are inexperienced, but a great director will draw out every single bit of acting ability from young actors, and they will make it work. They will. Look at the Harry Potter movies, right? Stuff like that. All of them were young actors, and none of them were bad. Casting a blind actress can be dangerous and also hard for production. Yeah, that's what I mean. I am sort of, I'm not the person you should be listening to this, right? But, personally, I think, like, it's just, I think being dangerous is the biggest thing. Because, yeah, they can get, like, a stunt actress, right? And then it's obviously, like, a lot more safe. And all of them have stunt actors. But still, like, if they could do it properly, and then there wouldn't be, like, weird horror stories of the things that happen behind the scenes at Netflix, sure, why not? But aside from that, I'd much rather just have them pick someone who was, like, right for the role. So you're telling me Aang actor was not frozen in ice for 100 years? Well, people still are not sure if that was fake or not. You know, we're still trying to piece it together. I saw people doing, like, math on what the human body would look like if it was frozen in ice for 100 years. But some people still think that it was indeed real. They do. Sometimes when I make these, like, super dumb jokes, when I respond to chat with, like, completely zero context, and I put those videos on YouTube, you have no idea how many comments I get of people just, like, literally not even understanding that I was just joking. I think a lot of people think that I genuinely just say dumb things, just 100% seriously. So that was, like, one of them. I'm gonna clip it out of context. It's gonna be great. But I think that's, like, all of the Avatar stuff. They didn't really do anything more. I still have hope that book 2 and book 3 are better because of the material, right? Like, book 1 was hard to put together. Book 1 is like multiple puzzle pieces that don't necessarily fit together, and they had to make them fit together. I think a lot of the stuff they did was bad. For example, why did they move up Wan Shi Tong? Like, literally, why? What was the rationale behind moving up Wan Shi Tong at all? There wasn't any. The only reason why Wan Shi Tong was there was so that people point at the screen and say, I know that. That is the only appeal of Wan Shi Tong in book 1. That is it. They moved him up so that I, along with many others, are like, oh, that's him! That's him! I know him! That's it. That's the only purpose, right? And why do I say that? Well, because they didn't even do the Zhao story, right? Like, they introduced Wan Shi Tong to coincide with Zhao's story, but it didn't coincide with Zhao's story. Zhao didn't even interact with him. Zhao discovered of the thing in, like, a random temple. It had nothing to do with Wan Shi Tong's library, right? So that is just like a universal negative, you know? It's bad. It's bad. And they did a bunch of things like that that I just think don't make sense. I think moving up the Cave of Two Lovers to season 1, that worked very well. And I think moving up, like, Omashu... Well, actually, that's not even moving up. Omashu was taken at the end of book 1, theoretically. So that's, like, a good call. Moving up Azula, I think, was a good call. They did a bunch of good things. But at the same time, they did a lot of very, very bad things. Easter eggs for the sake of Easter eggs? I think so, too, yeah. And that is the worst thing you can do. Because you're not really respecting the audience, right? You're just putting things in there that don't mean anything. And I think the best way that I've seen it done is, like, something that One Piece did, right? Where they just had, like, the posters. And if you know One Piece, you know the people on the posters, and it's fun. But if you don't know One Piece, you're never gonna recognize the posters, and it's gonna be like, who cares? You know? It's like it's again, a win-win. You need to set up these small wins where everyone wins. Whereas I think Avatar, they leaned way too far in, like, nostalgia. And even with nostalgia, they messed up pretty massively too. Recounting like the intro of the series multiple times, that was clearly farming for nostalgia, which I think was bad. The bending in the series, not bending in terms of effects. The effects were incredible. The effects were amazing. But the way they handled them actually learning the elements, that was kind of and kind of mid. A lot of that stuff. What I hope happened is that they, like the scripts of Avatar were basically written and sort of already planned out before One Piece, right? And now that Book 2 is in production, I hope that they draw much more on One Piece. Because it genuinely seems like Avatar, like Book 1 of Avatar, was made with the philosophy of closer to Cowboy Bebop than it was to One Piece. Because it entered production first. The live-action version of Avatar has been in production for so many years. It's insane. So I do have high hopes for Book 2. I do. I do think it's going to be better. I don't know how much better, but I hope so. I hope so. And yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, Aang never did firebending, right? Which never establishes that fear of firebending. Aang never did waterbending even once in the book called Water. Katara goes from messing around to being a master off-screen, and she never actually does any sort of training, at least not that we see of. There are so many different things there that just kind of happen, and it's bad. It's not great. So we'll see what happens with Book 2. I think Book 1 was alright. I don't think it was bad. I think it was alright. It's one of those situations where, like, you know, both things are true. I think they did a lot of things really, really well. I think, like, roping in Roku and the spirit magic stuff, that was great. That was just a universal W because I'm a spirits enjoyer. One of my favorite things about all of Avatar are the spirits. And I think they did the spirits right. I like them. But at the same time, they messed up, like, a lot of the other stuff. Like, the traditional arts of bending, that's lost. They did it kind of like magic. Azula's bending techniques, in some instances, were also just off, right? Like, they did the whole lightning appearing in hands, which just looks weird. I don't know why they did that. The Zuko story was great, though. And Uncle Iroh was excellent. So, it's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag, and we'll just wait for Book 2. We'll wait for Book 2, and then we'll see what happens. I will be here regardless. I will be seated. And I am excited to see what they do. If they do Toph right, I do think we have, like, high hopes. Very, very high hopes.